And welcome to my Thursday stream, in which we will be working on some coloring pages for an upcoming book featuring characters from my webcomic Noah's Archipelago. On some coloring. And specifically, we are focusing on the main character, Noah, telling his daughter, Ursula, who is in third grade, about various jobs he's had as kind of a homework assignment she's got to do. She's not very interested in most of them though. But, you know, we're gonna kind of have a bit of a seasonal weirdness tonight because I don't know where you guys all are. I'm on the west coast of Canada and it is stinking hot here today. I think it's like 27, 28 Celsius. But what we are drawing is some Christmas jobs Noah had back in his teenaged mall job era of life. So the first one we're going to draw is Noah doing some gift wrapping. And then I assume we will have time because usually we've been doing two of these a night. Then we'll have him setting up the Christmas trees near where Santa is. I do have a third one in case we have time for a third one, but I don't think we're going to get to it. So anyways, let's get right into things. And what I'm going to start with is the gift wrapping one. What I'm using, by the way, are just Staedtler pigment liners. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Well, and then there's, I guess this one's Stabilo, that's like ultra fine. And I use a variety of line widths. By the way, I do have, as I'm getting ready to launch a newsletter, so for sign up bonuses, freebies, whatever, I have done 3 coloring pages. So to give you a sense, these were drawn at the same size as those, the same pens, and then made them fit into a regular standard piece of paper with a little border with the URLs and whatnot. So when it's scanned and whatnot, it'll end up looking a little bit like that. That's the idea. So let's get right into it, and we'll start with some of the main outlines with the 1.2 millimeter. We'll do some subdivisions with the 0.7 as well. Now, Noah, usually I draw him, he's got these kind of swooping, curly bangs and whatnot, but, you know, back in the 90s, the center part hairdo seemed to be pretty common. So we're assuming when he was a teenager, he didn't really have his fabulous current hairstyle up and running yet. Uh, but he clearly had mastered the flat iron, I suppose, or the blowout. So, and we'll assume he's wearing one of those headbands that has like the antlers on it. Working in the mall, trying to be all festive and whatnot. Noah, of course, loves any sort of holiday, so this would be, other than, you know, presumably not the greatest pay, but I'm sure it's one of the jobs that he remembers most fondly from his younger years as well. So, I realized in the underdrawing I forgot to give him eyebrows. We'll do that right now. And not too concerned, say, in the face with like separating out his nose into a different area for coloring and whatnot. Kind of like to have a bit of a mix of sizes of areas. So that kind of works with that. And regular viewers of mine, especially if they're familiar with the webcomic version Noah's Archipelago, may note that Noah actually has a shirt covering his chest. It's rare, but it does happen on occasion. Usually more when he's dressed up in some ridiculous costume like the Easter Bunny, but you know, I'm sure it was part of the dress code that he couldn't just have his shirt unbuttoned all the way down to his navel, as he kind of prefers to do now. Uh, And because I'm working with these will smudge if you're, rubbing against them right away, but they do dry pretty quickly. So I get to bounce around in my, um, order of operations a lot more than I get to do when I'm working with the dip pen and liquid ink on, my Monday, Wednesday, and Friday shows. I'm envisioning I was thinking of different, like, holiday displays at different malls I've been at. I was envisioning kind of like they're not actually cardboard, they're a little thicker than that, but basically flat, cutouts of presents and stuff like that that are hung up maybe with care, maybe not with care on, the walls of the guest services kiosk. Actually, last night we had a little bit of a mention of Christmas as well because I was inking drawings, a couple drawings of views of Zalmo's secret basement lab for my other comic project, Zalmo the Destroyer. And the entrance to Zalmo's secret basement lab is through the crawl space at Zalmo's pet human Georgie's house. So there's a curtain just past the boxes of Christmas decorations. And then here we are. I was looking through, I have a whole list of jobs that Noah will be drawn doing in this coloring book. And the one that just I kept coming back to was the gift wrapper and then the Christmas decorator. I'm like, why not? I think initially I thought I might leave those to the very end. Um, like one of the last streams I would do working on the book, because then that would be closer to Christmas or Christmas prep, but meh, no time like the present. So, just gonna kind of outline this last flat, and then we're gonna go in with a thinner pen and do some more detailed stuff. So, let's give some stranding in Noah's hair. Of course, it'll be up to whoever buys the book when it comes out to decide what color they're doing Noah's hair back in the 90s, you know? Perhaps he had, perhaps he went gray early. I actually didn't know a couple people who went gray when they were like 18, which is just crazy. Um, so he could have already had his gray bangs at that point, or maybe he was like dyeing his hair weird colors, or who knows. Um, let's put some patterns on these cardboard box cutouts. This makes them a little more interesting for whoever's doing the coloring eventually versus just, the giant areas. If this book, I mean, I'm kind of treating it as an adult coloring book, not that there's like adult themes in it or anything, but if I was doing a coloring book for kids, I would leave the areas bigger and less detailed, but teenagers and adults have a little bit more coordination, so it's easier for them to color more intricate patterns. Oh, I always, in my family, it was my job to wrap the presents unless it was stuff that was for me. So we, I never ever, we never did the whole pay somebody at the mall to wrap them for us thing. It was just kind of a given that it was my job to do that. tended to do things kind of straightforward. I do like really we'll see when we get down there. Noah's kind of done a fancy job. I do like the fancier gift wrapping look of it, but it's not something I've really done a whole lot of myself. Once I kind of have the whole area outlined, then well, I should say the whole page, then I'll go back with a really fat marker and we'll kind of give a little um, thin and thickness to the different lines. I'll just make it a little more visually interesting as well. I think usually when I've seen these kind of display gifts type signs in malls, usually they don't have patterns on them. Usually it'll be like glitter paper. It was kind of fun to look at some of these sort of display items and figure out exactly how they're made and whatnot. One of my favorite things when I'm watching Garden Answer is actually when she helps decorate her mom's or her parents' garden center for Christmas. And like one year they went around to different like furniture and appliance stores and got all these giant cardboard boxes and then used those to turn them into enormous gingerbread houses and whatnot that they still have and occasionally use from year to year. Um, there's one artist, and right now her name escapes me, but there's an artist I follow on Instagram, and she showed the process. She did window display for anthropology, and it was like what she made was this giant ice cream cone that was supposed to be it was supposed to look like it was made out of, the porcelain that's got the white and blue designs on it, like Delft porcelain, so but she showed the process, and I think she used, like the core of it, I think, was, like, I think it's actually used for, like, drainage pipe, but it's, like, black plastic pipe that's about that thick, and it's got, like, the rings around the outside, corrugation kinda look. So there was that, and then it she used that to form it, and I think also some flexible pipe to make the ridges, and then coated it in, um, masking tape, and then there was some sort of probably plaster, I guess, that went on top of that, to make it a harder shell, or maybe it was spray foam, I forget, and then carving into that to give it the look of, soft serve ice cream, painted it, and then she had these decals that were, looked like the, blue and white kind of floral china pattern motifs and all that. It was pretty fascinating little reel. And it looked really cool at the end too. See, those would be the kind of jobs that would be fun to do in retail, in my opinion. It's like, no customer service, just make things look nice. I imagine those jobs are the hardest ones to get in retail, though, for obvious reasons. Hi, let me see. Banglin, Eli Elias. I'm sure I've butchered the name of that. How to say your name, but welcome to the stream. So Noah here has a kind of like a paper towel holder, but instead of a paper towel, he's got different rolls of ribbon. I think I will go in after I've done everything else and kind of give some texture of some sort to this back. I'm kind of envisioning that it could be like a curtain or, kind of just a plain background in a little kiosk where Noah would be working. But I think once I've got everything else done, then I know where my lines are to make things kind of bump up into it. So keep going with Noah then. And his desk is going to come across like that. And he's got a little, kind of like a staff vest. It's a little bit thinky of back when I worked at Michael's and we all had red vests that we had to wear. Although I think of like the gift wrapping kiosks I've seen at the mall. They're usually not even wearing a uniform, but it's more fun for the purposes of this project if we assume he is wearing some sort of a uniform. And for the sketch tape, I'm going to make it super thin like that. By the way, what I'm working over top is a non-photo blue pencil underdrawing. So what I use is just the Prismacolor PC919. The idea is then when you scan in black and white, that blue underdrawing pretty much goes bye-bye. So works pretty well unless you press really hard. In some spots you might get the faintest sort of ghost line, but usually most of it vanishes. So he's put sprigs of holly in underneath the bow. The better to make sure that the recipient gets stabbed by the present, but not the most practical thing. I think I saw a photo on a line where somebody did that, but it was like pine boughs. Guess it depends how far in advance of giving the gift that you're um, wrapping it, because the pine boughs would also kind of dry out and get nasty, although not as pokey as holly for sure. So his bow has kind of long tails, and then the actual parcel. Noah's general rule of thumb for any sort of crafty whatever is the thing that is worth doing is always worth overdoing. I'm going to use a thinner, no, actually, I think for the ribbons, I'm going to do a wider outline just because that signals that these are, it's not a print on the paper, it's actually a separate thing. Um, Definitely is a little weird to be drawing Christmas related stuff when I'm sitting here in a tank top. But I guess some parts of the world, that's just how it normally goes, eh? While I think of it, why don't we put a little, kind of some fold details into Noah's shirt. We're not going to go super realistic or detailed, but we'll give it just a few little details. Kind of just breaks up the big area of his shirt. And give his little vest a little bit of detailing. And maybe he's got a pocket here. And maybe he's, you know what, maybe he's got his sprigs of holly there, which would probably be very unpleasant for him, but, you know, make that line a little thicker. It just shows that there's a little bit of a separation there. We'll assume that there's a little bit of pulling across the shirt to give some sense of folding. Of course, if somebody wants to envision it that he's wearing a zebra print shirt, go right ahead. That works too. And Noah probably does have zebra print shirts. Maybe he's got a name badge here. Really gotta fix that sleeve. It makes it look that that arm's too thin versus the other arm. So I'll make a note over here to fix sleeve too thin. And then Noah's got a grip on another piece of rolled up piece of wrapping paper. Obviously not for this box, but here polka dots are making a comeback. I don't know how true that is, but I do love me a good polka dot, especially the really big, obnoxious ones. It's a fun pattern. So there we go. And of course, you would have to have a pair of scissors somewhere on the desk. Now, the edge of the table. The sign is, we'll assume, safety pinned up. Some folds coming down on the side of the tablecloth. Some grommets on the banner here. So on last night's stream, I was working on some Zommel the Destroyer stuff, as I mentioned earlier. It was actually the first time in, well, it wasn't the first time I had streamed using OBS, because I think I did like one random test stream on a Sunday a couple months ago. It was the first time I did it in one of my like regular time slots. Went kind of all right, I think. And we worked on some bonus material for the Zommel the Destroyer book that I'm working on. But I think over the summer, I'll probably start doing a little bit more of horizontal format OBS streaming, but this one will probably stay vertical for the foreseeable future. Kind of good to have a mix of both, I think. So there is that sign. We will in a moment. Um, add some more texture detail into the background. And for this, I'm actually going to flip Noah upside down. This makes it a little easier. Uh, It might be nice if we have kind of some bursting effects behind the fake gift boxes. Before I go further, actually, I think this would be a good time to kind of use the fatter nib and put some definition in the different areas because it kind of helps break up the planes of like to back kind of thing of what we've got going on here. Hey, Hockey, how's it going? We are exploring some of Noah's past work history. for a coloring book. And we're also pretending that it's not stinking hot today. When I start, about 30, a little more than half an hour ago. Um, guess Eastern time I'd be starting at 9:30. 6:30 out here on the coast, but guess it's longer. I was starting to go like, "Wow, I'm getting this done real fast." I look at the time, go, "Nah, nah, this is about the right pace." No, he did not. Red Blade did. He stayed away. Probably found somebody more entertaining. So I think sometimes when people are posting that kind of stuff, what they want is somebody to just like flip out on them or whatever. So there's a time to flip out, and there's a time to just ignore it or play dumb. So put a little bit of a shadow on his paper roll. And this is already making it look a little bit more 3D. I think what I may do though is grab the piece of paper I was using the other day when somebody was asking me about drawing eyes, because then I can make sure I'm not smudging this uh, by having my hand right on top of where I have just drawn. A little bit of an outline on his name badge. So now we can come back up to these fake parcels in the display sign. Give them a little bit of a shadow. And I'll clean up some of that stuff in Photoshop. And then we can also give the background kind of display a little bit of a shadow. So then we are building up just a little bit of, layers front to back as we do this. And we are going to have a little bit of inconsistency in sort of parallel lines in which ones have shadows and which ones don't, but that's fine. It's not real realism after all. And I'm going to flip this upside down to be able to reach a little bit better. And there we go. We're starting to put some shadows onto Noah himself, such as under his bangs, because presumably those are poofed up a little bit from his head. This is always a bit of a different way of working and thinking that I'm used to. Um, so I always have to kind of concentrate a little bit more when I'm doing the coloring pages. It's not too much now. So let's see. So I think that's given the difference in line weights, I think has really helped. I am going to give a fatter outline to the back of Noah's hair and his ear, because that also helps to bring him forward. And now we're going to take a thinner pen and do a little bit of detail work. And actually, I think I might even go thinner than the 0.7. I think I'm going to go for a 0.4. Now, I know from, let me just look at, I showed earlier some of the samples I'm going to have for coloring pages that will be freebies, signing up for the mailing list I'm about to launch. So this pen is that weight in the background um, for Ricky and Baby. So it's still thick enough that it doesn't, if you go too fine, the line can kind of start cutting in and out. But the 0.4 doesn't really do that yet. So I'm just going to tidy up some of this. I'll just make that sharp. And now, kind of do, when I used to do more quilting, this sort of thing would be called echo quilting, where you're kind of just working around an outline. I don't know if that's the proper term with, you know, coloring book design or not, but it works. We'll go with it. We'll call it echoing until somebody comes into my comments and says that's not what it's called at all. It's like, okay, cool. Well, now I know. But it's a similar effect to echo quilting, so I'm going to go with that. And do a little bit like that. This is the sort of thing I can remember in elementary school. Friends of mine and whatnot, we would do things where we would doodle our names in big letters in our notebook, and then we would kind of go around it and also inside it with these kind of echoing kind of lines. So something kind of meditative about it, I guess. This one I'm not even going to bother. Well, maybe I'll do that. Um, you kind of, there comes a point where if you have too much in it, it starts to become a little unclear and um, confused looking. Now, just think if I go vertical, that would kind of echo the curtain lines, I think, but I don't wanna here, I wanna give the sense of, when the, fabric kind of undulates. Um, Plus that's then closer to us, so we wanna, uh I'm gesturing, I'm not even in the, frame here. Um, you end up with an undulation of the fabric, and when the line comes it gets thicker, it indicates a shadow, which that would have, right? But it also the thicker the line, the closer it feels to us. So, um, I won't go that thick in here, but I think maybe I will just kinda do a simple vertical. Can indicate that there is a curtain back there, or maybe it's candy stripes, whatever. But we already have a lot of complication up here, so we don't need to go too crazy in complication in the background. But it's nice to have some breakup of that rather than just leave it as a big white expanse. And I will do something similar on the table in a moment as well. Think it's kind of good, and I'm not gonna pretend like I am, the greatest aficionado of adult coloring books. I certainly have several, um, but I have seen some where the detail is super fine, very tiny, to the point where I would find it frustrating to work on. Granted, I'm at an age where I need reading glasses and all that sort of stuff, but then if things are too simple becomes frustrating in a different sort of way. So I think having this mix where there's some small areas and details, and then some areas that are a bit bigger, um, I think that works pretty well personally. So let's just kind of go horizontal here for this table. It also kind of breaks up the vertical and shows that that surface is perpendicular to the vertical lines. Go over this one again because I'm a little concerned that when it's scanned, it will end up breaking up a little too much. This area is obviously getting fatter, but that's fine because that also makes it look like there's some fabric there that's got some, I was going to say vitality. That sounds like a weird word to use for it, but that's got some movement to it, even though it's flat on a table. And I'm kind of varying how close and far these lines are to each other. And they're not exactly parallel, which works because if it's a fabric tablecloth, those will often have some movement to them as well. So that is our going to be our first of Noah's jobs for the night. Um, Showing him doing gift wrapping, which I have listed. This is because it's an A to Z, it is alphabetical. I have that listed under W, but they could also go under G. Um, Probably worked better with W because what's following after it is Xmas tree decoration. And I know, technically it's spelled with a C, but we're going to go with Xmas because otherwise the pickings are very slim um, for jobs that would start with X that, obviously there's X-ray technician and whatnot, but let's be blunt, yeah, Noah's not working that kind of a technical job. So let's move on. So while he was working on at the mall that time, back in presumably the 90s, aside from the gift wrapping, they also had him helping to set up Santa's castle or whatever it was called at his particular mall. So we have Noah, the Xmas tree decorator. Give him a little elf hat there. And outline again the center part hair that he had in the 90s. No, for the tree background trees, I'll do the front foreground and then do the background after. But I will, instead of having the main line be a 1.2 millimeter, we'll have the main line back there be a point 0.7 because again, that pushes those trees further back, right? So, let's draw the giant tree he is working on. With the tinsel garland he is also working on. And again, he's got the exact same uniform on. So that's the main outline of the tree. Just give the main outline of Noah, and then kind of move to a smaller pen for some more details. Now we got to remember he does have pockets in this outfit. I guess we'll use the same pen for showing the box full of ball ornaments. Every so often we see the top of one. So at this point, I would still say we're basically doing the main major outlines. We get to this pen, but further up front, or this pen for the background. Then we'll be doing finer, smaller details. Um, and then, of course, afterwards, I will go and use the fatter pen. So those are the main outlines. Now, I'll flip this upside down and start doing some backgroundy kind of things. Yeah, I don't know about this. I was trying to do kind of like, sometimes you'll see the groups of like three things that kind of make it sparkle, but I don't think that's working. Uh, Maybe what I'll do instead is make it as if there's some bunting. And I got my note in the side to get rid of these because that'll be fairly straightforward to Photoshop out. And it's just part of the process. You start doing something, you go, yeah, I don't know, that didn't really work. Probably after I finish with putting a thicker outline onto Noah in certain parts, then probably come back with this, um, and also a slightly thicker pen to kind of, yeah. Anyways, problem is sometimes when I'm doing this stuff, I have the picture in my head, but uh, describing it is a little awkward, which is kind of a problem because that's what I'm trying to do on the stream is to explain what I'm doing as well as just do it. But yeah. And you know what? I think I will pause and add some fatter outlines because that's going to make things easier. Uh, Pause and take a drink of water first. All right, now let's get our friend the fat pigment liner. So the first and most prominent thing is that there's going to be a shadow underneath this garland that Noah is holding out. It's not going to be there every single spot, but it's going to be there often enough. And let's also work on that on the big tree. So, yeah, that's already pushing that tree further back into the background. Um, so yeah. And that ball is going to kind of look as if it's hanging on this tree, except this tree is not going to have any balls on it yet because Noah's putting up the garland first. Now, doing it this way, as opposed to if I had started with the fatter pen, does mean that I kind of go over certain things twice, which takes twice as long. But there's definitely some advantages in the sense that there's certain areas, even here, where it isn't really all the fatter pen, right? So, whereas if I started with the fat pen, well, it's always easier to go over a line and make it fatter than it is to undo if you go too far initially. So that I will probably tidy up um, because we're losing his Adam's apple. So now I'm going to add some more detail into all the branching on this tree, break up some sections here and there. Once upon a time, about a decade ago, I ended up getting a part time job at Michael's one fall and into winter, actually into the next summer for some extra money. And I think the first my first official duty, my boss, it was the day the Christmas trees had come in on the shipment, and my boss said, "Are you okay to, like, fluff these up?" I'm like, "Yep." Apparently, most of the other staff members hated doing it and complained every year. So, it's kind of, she was a little surprised. I was like, "Oh, cool, cool. I love playing around with Christmas trees." There were other aspects of that job that I did not like, but, that one was fun. So there we have the sense of that, uh, tree, and I am going to just kind of put in a little zigzag on the actual, garland. We're just kinda adding some poofiness to the, fuzzy trim on this tree skirt as well. And then this, I mean, that was at a slightly smaller scale. We're going to not put as much detail into his clothes because there's gonna be the details in the tree and whatnot. I'm kind of envisioning that Noah is standing on a red carpet because a lot of the mall Santa displays that I've seen have, a red carpet leading up to the spot where you get your photo taken with Santa. So we're going to play with that and then just kind of drawing as if there's some planks on the ground because that helps also separate the different areas. And now this was drawn in a finer pen, but we are going to put in some thicker outlines a little bit here and there. By a little bit here and there, I mean probably just about everywhere. And since it's 8 o'clock, I mean, I'm not going to run overtime today, but I'm also probably not going to finish that early. But we are still drawing towards the end of the stream. So this is a good point for me to sort of say for anyone who's watching live, if you want to catch the replay, what I do when I finish the stream is I let it be saved as private until YouTube has done its whatever it does with the processing. And sometime tomorrow afternoon, it'll go back to being public after it's all up at its fancy whatever resolution and quality and all that sort of stuff that YouTube does behind the scenes. So I mentioned that. Usually I try and mention that towards the end of every show, except I think on, was it Monday? I totally blanked on that. And then one of my viewers emailed and it's like, oh, what happened to the stream? I'm like, oh, oops, I forgot to mention. It'll be back up tomorrow. So there you go. Uh, And I will come in with the really fine liner afterwards and kind of do a bit of this sort of stuff in these trees. But I'm gonna finish making these lines a little thicker so that we have the outlines. And like I said, I will tidy up. I was trying to do something there, when you see the cartoons of the trees and it looks like that, and then you get these kind of lines. That's what I was going for, but they don't look good when they're outlined. So we will just make them go bye bye in Mr. Photoshop at some point in the future when I'm scanning all of these to assemble into the coloring book. Not every idea ends up working out. So, and then I will also mention so tomorrow night we are going to be inking couple, maybe even 3 pages from Ricky B Goes to Sea, which is my graphic novel involving my punk rock rat dude, Ricky. Um, and then on Monday, we are working on Miles for Miles Marv's Pursuit of Happiness. That one should be the W spread. I have it written down what it's going to be, but I don't remember offhand. And Tuesday, our stream will be more Noah with another of those full color illustrations. Formerly, I was saying it was for a 2027 calendar project, but I've decided instead I will do a book of days um, project. So they will be kind of section headers, monthly section headers. And then Wednesday, we will be doing some pen and ink for Zomo the Destroyer. And I am going to, I started last night a little bit of some views into Zomo's secret basement lab, but we only got two of them drawn. So we'll have two, well, I guess I'll probably end up putting like four more in the book for six in total. But you'll probably just get two inked next Wednesday. And then, of course, Thursday, we will be back here working on Noah's resume again. So now we've got some fatter outlines in there. Kind of want to let's do that sort of thing for this. This might actually be ribbon instead. Some people put ribbons in their trees instead of garland. So we'll give it a bit of that vibe. And that also differentiates it from the tree texture and from this garland for the front. Uh, that one I'm just going to leave as is. We'll put some, again, of this sort of swirling fold kind of texture onto the tree skirts here. Now, we're going to kind of add more branching details in to these back ones using the really thin 0.4 millimeter Although when I look at it, it sure doesn't. It looks more like a full millimeter, but I guess I'd have to hold a ruler next to it and see. Uh, Now these areas are pretty small, but I'm not doing much of a reduction in the size of the drawing. It's slightly bigger than 8 by 10 now, and it'll be about 8 by 10 when all's said and done. So I'm not worried too much about having smaller areas like that left in because they'll still be basically the same size. Like it's not going to get so tiny that it becomes impossible to get your pencil crayon in or that becomes frustrating to color in. So I'm gonna kind of fatten up the outline on some, but not all of these balls. Just kind of somewhere it might look a little bit flat. Um, right. Kind of think that one is gonna be, we'll call that one done here. How are we doing for time? It's about 15 minutes earlier than I would normally knock off, but um, now it'll take about 45 minutes to do the third one I have drawn. So I think we will end up leaving that for next week. So let's have a quick look-see at what we have done today. Again, this is for the A to Z of Noah's archipelago of Noah's resume for my character Noah Thorson for my webcomic Noah's Archipelago. The premise of this is it's going to be a coloring book wherein now Noah, I think is supposed to be 47, and his 8-year-old daughter is asking him questions about his work history, which is for a school assignment. And he actually answers her question, much to her annoyance, because then she's got to listen to him. But he talks about all these different jobs he's had. So in this case, these two are from when he was a teenager during his mall job phase of life. So we started with gift wrapping. Noah still likes fancy gift wrap and decorations and all this sort of stuff, but there he is. He's put some holly into the bow. He's got his tape, he's got scissors, he's got a different type of wrapping paper and a whole stack of ribbons there. So he's working at the mall kiosk, gift wrapping while you keep shopping. And then, same job, same. Oh, yeah, I guess I should give him. I just realized in the first one I had him with his little name badge. Here I forgot it. Now at this scale, yeah, I think I can still make it so that his name letters are readable. We'll just fatten that up so that doesn't create a super teeny tiny space. So anyways, there we go. Same job. He's going to be also charged with setting up the Christmas trees in that area that all the malls used to have. I guess some of them still do, usually close to the food court, where they set up a little Santa's workshop area for the kiddos to come and get their photos taken with Santa. Actually, I'm going to give him, just going to set that out a little bit by giving a fatter outline to the side of his hair. There. Now he kind of comes forward from that tree a bit. So there he is, happily setting up the giant Christmas trees and decorating them as well. So it's a bit of a weird thing to be doing at the end of May when where I am, I think it was like 27 or 28 degrees Celsius earlier. It was sweaty and hot and all this. But, it popped into my head that I should do the Christmas stuff. So I did. So those are our two coloring book pages finished for this week. Hope you've enjoyed this week's or tonight's stream, all my streams this week and always. And yeah, I will be back streaming again tomorrow night to ink a couple pages from Ricky B, the Rock and Roll Rat at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. So I think that's 9:30 Eastern, something like that. And I know I have some viewers from even the other side of the planet. So I am bad at math, so I won't guess every other time, but yeah, Monday to Friday evenings for my time zone, I will be working on something. So we will be here tomorrow for Ricky B. Rat and then a whole bunch of different streams next week. So thank you for watching, and we will see you again next time. Bye for now, and bye bye, Noah.